Pittsburgh Steelers, Russell Wilson in particular. Man, good win. Look at the team, dude. 7-2, man. It's what Mike Tomlin does. I mean, I truly thought that this was the year where it was going to be like, all right, finally, the below 500 season for Mike Tomlin is coming. And here we are. They're 7-2. They just took down the Washington Commanders in Washington. The team is rolling. The defense is playing well. We knew that was not going to be a shock, but we didn't really know what we were going to get out of the quarterback position. And Justin Fields ends up starting the year. He ends up playing pretty dang well, at least the most confident and crisp Justin Fields that I feel like we have seen this season. They make a surprise move to Russell Wilson, and I think the return on investment has been fantastic. I think on this very show, we were talking about it after the first week that Russell Wilson was out there. And, obviously there was some rust with him coming off of that injury and not being in the starting lineup with this team yet this season. And he was still working things out. But I think even the flashes of what you saw there, I went, okay, I see why Mike Tomlin is making the change. Like, I see why Mike Tomlin is trying this out. And it is because Russell Wilson, as a deep passer, is getting more out of this passing game than Justin Fields was. When you look at what he was able to do against the Washington Commanders, nothing that really stood out in a major way on the common box score. 14 completions, 28 total attempts, so a 50% completion percentage, 195 yards. He had those 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. It was a lot of those big-time throws from Russell Wilson, but whether it was this past game or just what you have seen from Russ in the past since he became a starter of this team, Seth, what do you think about Russ's performance here in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think with this team in general, the defense is always going to keep them in as many games as possible.
Sure.
There's just so much talent on that defense. There is so much talent, starting with the D-line and then in the secondary. So that was always going to be a thing, and that's why they've been so good. That's why they're never under 500, right? Because that defense continues to be elite year in, year out. I think with Russ, I agree with you that it's the deep ball passing, because they've taken some hits. Like, I know they ran the ball pretty well, especially early against the Giants a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. But their run efficiency hasn't been great since Russell Wilson took over. You knew that was going to happen, given that you don't have the gravity of a running quarterback like Justin Fields on the zone reads, and then you don't have just him catching the snap and running the football, which is great for an offense. However, they weren't getting the ball down the field. And I don't know, it's like you watch it and you're like, man, I'm not really sure what Russell Wilson's doing other than just throwing jump balls to Pickens, and now, late in the game for the first time, and hopefully first of many times, to Mike Williams. But so you're looking at it, you're like, is this sustainable? Is this real? Is this real? 2 things. A, it might be real because Russell Wilson has done this before in his career.
Right.
He hasn't done it in a few years, and that's kind of the issue. But he has. This is who Russell Wilson is. And then I'm coming around to this idea that the trajectory on deep throws, especially ones down the sideline, like vertical 9 routes down the sideline, there is a type of throw that needs to be that makes it easier for the receiver to catch it, and Russ throws those balls with a lot of air underneath them, so the receivers can go and adjust to the ball. And I'll always go back to a throw that Justin Fields made, I believe on a Sunday night game against the Jets, where he was trying to find his big tight end Darnell Washington down the seam. And he needed to put a lot of air underneath the ball and let him go run into the end zone and catch the football. And he throws it way too much on a line, and there's no chance that Washington catches it. And that's the difference. And it's like, so you're losing a little bit in the run game, but if you're gaining so much more explosive pace in general and in the pass game, then it's fine, right? I don't see Russell Wilson being this insane quarterback right now. I still think there's throws that he could be making. Or receivers that he's not seeing, but he makes it up with all this other stuff, which again, that's what he's done his whole career.
Right.
Like, he's made up for some of the shortcomings that he's had, or by being this kind of outlier type of player who can, scramble around. Obviously, he doesn't scramble as much anymore, or move as well anymore, but scramble around and throw these moon balls down the field, and maybe we're getting that again, and maybe that's enough. With how good the defense is, with how good the running game, I think, still can be, with the trio of backs they have, with getting Zach Frazier healthy, the running game can be okay. And then you pair that with the explosive plays in the passing game. Like, why not?
It is a formula that worked for Seattle in many years. And I think this is the formula that maybe the Broncos wanted, thought they could get. And for whatever reason, that was just not what was happening, whether he was with Nathaniel Hackett or Sean Payton. And here we are with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Arthur Smith is very comfortable allowing him to be exactly what he was when he was in Seattle, and that is this sort of big game hunter type of a quarterback. I mentioned the common stats. They don't really do Russ many favors other than the 3 touchdowns, but he had 3 big-time throws and 0 turnover-worthy plays in this game. So, okay, yeah, it's a little bit of feast or famine, but they also they have the team that allows him to be feast or famine, right? I think that that's an important part as well. One, they've got a fantastic defense behind him, so if Russ takes his shots and they're not hitting in a certain day, they've got the defense to be able to keep them within football games. So you go, okay, well, this is just a math equation now. He will hit enough for us because our defense is able to keep the other team from scoring so often that we're going to win more than we're going to lose. So in that aspect, it is a little bit of a numbers game for the Steelers to be able to lean into for what he can do as a deep passer. Then you throw in what type of receivers they have with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. It's George Pickens. They just traded for Mike Williams. These are deep ball, moon ball type of receivers. And I think that it's going exactly into the type of quarterback that Russell Wilson is. Now, I get a little bit nervous when I talk about how legitimate this team is like a deep playoff run team, because it is a little bit boomer bust. You look at Russell Wilson, he's 3rd in the NFL right now in total average depth of target, or I should say just average depth of target. The only 2 quarterbacks that are
total averaging
depth of target. His ADOT's above 10, and the only other 2 quarterbacks that are above him are Jameis Winston and Anthony Richardson. And so this guy is pushing it down the field at a regular base, and I do get worried when the run game is not as efficient as it has been, because it wasn't as efficient this past game against the Washington Commanders. But previously, like, Najee Harris was on a roll. He was grading out very well. It was I think it was 3 straight 100-yard games for Najee Harris, and so they were running the ball fantastic. But when that is not the case, does the offense start to get a lot more frustrating, because he does not want to or just cannot complete those 1, 2, 14-yard throws with enough regularity to actually move the ball down the field methodically without a run game to be able to complement it. Now, maybe you could say that for anybody, right? Okay, every quarterback needs a run game. Every offense needs a run game. But it will be interesting to see what happens when the run game is not as efficient as it needs to be and we're not really hitting on those deep passes. Is that simply, okay, well, if that happens, we're probably going to lose the football game. Maybe the defense will win it for us, and maybe that's the formula we need. Maybe you just cannot cover all of your bases at the NFL level. But I do like what the Steelers are doing. I do love how they are leaning into Russell Wilson. I'm glad that you brought up the differences between him and how he throws the ball versus Fields and how he throws the ball, because I do agree with you completely. It's a little bit less in the run game, but the ceiling of the offense is higher with Russell Wilson, especially after the addition of Mike Williams. And so I think that the Steelers are very comfortable with where they are as a football team. I was worried about that being in the case going into the season, because the Steelers sort of always believe they're competitors, and sometimes it feels a little bit fool's gold-ish. But for this season, certainly with them making the change to Russell Wilson, Mike Tomlin obviously had a fantastic finger on the pulse of what his team was, what their ceiling was, and how he could raise it. And we're seeing that now with Russell Wilson. And I think that this win in Washington is a major sign that that is the case.
I'm just excited for this team. Like, they're a fun team, at least, right? They get after the quarterback on defense. That's fun. They play tight man-to-man coverage. That's fun. And then on offense, they're throwing deep balls. Like, it's a team you want to watch, like, because they also feel like they're excited, right? Like, they feel like, when they got the big play, the big offside call to the jump that won them the game, basically, that sealed the game, basically, and everyone was going crazy on the field and dancing and stuff, and like they just look like a team that's having a lot of fun together. And like the next part is like, also George Pickens is fun to watch.
Yeah,
he's a maniac, but it's really fun to watch.
He really is. No, it's true. I think that's a great way to put it. This team is, they're fun to watch, and the vibes are high in Pittsburgh, and they should be. They're 7-2. They're playing really good ball, and very clearly, you go into Washington and you beat that Washington Commanders team, you feel like you got a chance against anybody. So it'll be fun for the Steelers, who they highlighted on the broadcast. They have not played a divisional game yet, and so they've got quite the gauntlet of a schedule, playing the Ravens twice, the Bengals twice. I think they play the Bengals this upcoming week, if I remember correctly. No, they play the Ravens. They start with the Ravens, so they play the Ravens this upcoming week. So that'll obviously be a big test. We'll get to see how they face off against them, but they are at home, so I think that will definitely help them. But Russ has been a fun addition to this team. He really has. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below, so if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can come one today.